Hey guys, welcome in here. We're doing a quick video DFS warm up. We got the optimizer from Roto Grinders with the Blitz projections, one of the top projection systems in the game. We got my man here, Ray on State Kings, doing a little coaching session with him today. We're going to finalize the coaching session with some of the stuff we talked about. He had some questions, and let's just get to it, man. How you doing?
Yeah, great to be here. Thanks for having me on. It's nice to connect with someone that I've been, I guess, staking and taking pieces of, and glad to get the insight, and hopefully I can make some money on my side as well.
Yeah, he's looking at learning how to play some more DFS more competitively, getting in some bigger contests. He's looking at that stuff as well. So we got some bills. We got the player pool here. We've been going over some basic stuff, RGV sorting, the player pool, how to look at teams, different approaches, different ideas, building groups, rules, some of the stuff that I talked about in my previous optimizer video. I know a lot of guys struggle with how to use this. I think it's really a lot to take in. So so first of all, we looked at stacks. So in the NFL, we want to correlate your lineups together. You're going to want to play, let's look at Seahawks. You're going to want to play Russell Wilson with DK or Tyler Lockett. You might want to X these guys out of your pool. So what I do is I don't want to play there's no upside to these guys, right? Two upside guys are right here. Yeah, Swain might go off, catch one touchdown and 5 balls, but he's not going to get you a ceiling game. You want a ceiling game. You want these guys to catch a thing. These guys aren't going to do anything for you. You X them out of your player pool and move on. Then we can build lineups, okay? That's what we want to do. We want these ceiling games, right? So we're not trying to – one of the questions he had was we're not trying to build – like about lineups. We're not trying to build a perfect lineup. We're trying to build a lineup and take advantage of when others are wrong, right? So we're trying to get ahead of the field by ownership is key. So looking at this ownership and ceiling projection. So you like your thoughts on that? That answer for that question. We don't really care what players we're getting in our lineups, really. I mean, we do. We want ceiling guys. So we'll look at building some lineups here in a minute. You're gonna want to stay tuned. We'll show some different builds we talked about. But we also went through, looking at ownership. Like, I don't even care what this name is. I scroll through this, I see this guy at 6%. He's projected well, and I'm like, oh, Terry McLaurin at 6.4K might be a guy that I want to get in my lineups. He has big game upside. Look at the ceiling upside. Or you sort by ceiling and you go, oh, only 12 for Tyreek Hill. Maybe Mahomes and him go off. You have a little skinny stack, and you scroll down 7.3. Who we got? Tyler Lockett, Terry McLaurin. Like, these guys are low owned with good ceiling. Justin Jefferson, Julio Jones, mid-tier build. So first of all, we like to run some builds, and me and my man here built some lineups. Let's check them out. So we built the cash lineup, just kind of generic settings. You kind of just hit the optimizer button and you get this lineup. It looks like we're going to get a lot of, these 3K receivers, right? So we're getting a lot of these 3K receivers. We're getting a lot of these, upper echelon running backs, or we're getting a lot of Adams. We're getting, a lot of Adams and Pitts. Pitts is going to be very chalky. We're getting a lot of these 3K guys, right? These receivers and a lot of these builds. Okay. So this is a cash build. Well, then I built some lineups using the stacks. So we built some generic stacks, 1 to 2 pass catchers. Then we built 1 to 2 receivers, and then any combination run back. So we built those lineups, and we got these builds. Build 5. So we got Matt Ryan, Calvin Ridley, Kyle Pitts. Right here, Kyle Pitts. We got these 3K receivers. Look at all these 3K receivers. 2 of them, Christian. But oh man, we can get Christian McCaffrey, Alvin Kamara though, right? And Ridley. Wow, these 3K guys are gonna get. But guys, everyone's gonna be building this. It doesn't look like high ownership right now because I got a couple lower owned guys in here. But like Devontae Smith is popping a little bit at 4,500. What I end up doing is we ended up taking this lineup and we switched it. Like, see how this one's 87%, but it's lower total, but we were able to get different with a build, and maybe like a James Robinson to Jaguars, like a mid-tier running back, and we got off these 3K receivers. We got a Devontae Parker one-off at super low ownership. We still have Ridley, Kyle Pitts, Matt Ryan stack with Devontae Smith run back but we don't have any of these 3K guys. Maybe we bumped it up and played a little Lazard to run it back against Kamara. We still got Kamara, but instead of having Adams, maybe Lazard gets the big game, 8 catches, 2 touchdowns, and he has a big game because they're going to need some more production there. And I think that's going to be a good game. So those are some different ideas. Then we kind of approached it as running some other builds, and you can see we ran it again with a group. So we made some groups. So an idea was that he says, hey, how do we get these 3K receivers out of our lineups if we only want one or we don't want any of them? Well, we can make a group that we put all these guys in, and we're only going to get one of them. Okay. Max. That's the group. So really, the only problem I seen was if we want to play Terrence Marshall in a stack with Darnold, we wouldn't be getting Elijah Moore run back. But you think everyone does that, and they're building these 150 builds and just throwing them in, we might have a good idea here by not playing those 2 3K guys together. And that's definitely a good idea. And then we were getting some better lineups. You know, once we started doing that, we could see that we got a ton of these get 3K guys. And then we put that group in, boom. None of these 3K receivers, if any, in our lineup. We're getting more Gibson. We're getting more Mixon. We got Michael Pittman run back here. We don't have any secondary stacks in here. So, that's a good idea. So what do you think so far of these builds we're getting as we create groups and we create stacks, my guy?
No, I think it's actually really interesting. And the best, when we just been talking before him, the best line you sort of said was the way to describe it was instead of having to beat 200,000 entries by having a higher ownership stack, we've only got to beat 10,000 entries by, you know, mixing up a little bit and getting that median down on the ownership. You know, when I was building before, you know, very amateurish, I was just looking at projections. I wasn't looking at ceiling. And so I was getting in some very expensive guys and some very low owned guys, and very expensive and very inexpensive guys, but the ownerships were really high. So I was really never having a chance at winning a big one. So I like the way that we've gone through this and swapped out some of the higher owned guys and you know, get in these lower owned, but hopefully ceiling plays.
Yeah. And you know, and I love what you just said, my guy. And definitely looking at this, you know, we got these builds without these 3K guys stacked in there now, where we got Michael Pittman in here, and he could have a big game against the Seahawks. He's their guy now with no T.Y. Hilton. So everyone's looking at me like, oh, these guys are like nobody, but these guys have potential upside, and you're going to want to buy low on them. I mean, he's a little bit more chalky, but we're going to try to buy low on some of these guys week 1, take advantage of what other people aren't looking at. Everyone wants to play Callaway. Everyone wants to play these 3K receivers, but we need to buy low on some of these other guys that are just young talent, these younger guys that no one's been on before that could have a boom year, could look good. You know, Michael Pittman could have a great season. So I definitely love that. How you said you're getting heavy chalk, then you're getting these cheaper guys. We're still getting a lot of that. We're still getting some Jalen Reagor. We can add him to the group maybe. We're getting a lot of Joe Burrow, Boyd, and Higgins in these builds. This is just a generic build, guys, where you can see that I'm taking the pool, the groups, and the stacks, and then I'm building and building. You see how we have all these builds? We're gonna have 100. We could have 100 builds up here. You know, by the time we're done with it, I could click this build button like 40 times, 100 times before I'm done with this build, because I'm going to keep adding exposures and adding groups, or saying I want, you know, Jalen Reagor in here as a 3K guy. I don't want all these 3K guys in my lineup. And maybe we want to add, we haven't talked about secondary stacks, but as I build a second, we did talk a little bit about it. So I'm going to want a running back, and I want maybe receiver on the other end, right? I could do tight end receiver. So say we want tight end receiver. So running back to tight end receiver, 100% of the lineups, right? So we haven't talked much about secondary stack, but then we hit build, right? So like he said, he paid for a lot of expensive guys, a lot of low-owned guys, and that gets you some ceilings on some of the higher-owned guys, but then your 3K crappers might never get there. And if they 3X, 5X, you know, oh yeah, they 5X. But there's still 3K guys only like, what, 5x, 15, 18, 20 points in there. You need guys scoring 30 to 40 to win these big tournaments, guys. You got to get the ceiling. You got to, so a 9K guy can go off for 5x is better than a 3K guy going off for 5x. 15 to 20 points from these 3K guys might not get it done. You're looking at, why did I lose? Why did I lose? I got the 3K guy. He's 5x. No, guys. The guy that's 9K or 8K or some of these 7K guys and the balance builds go off for 5, 6x. They got way more points than you do, right? So looking at this, what's your other question that I like? The narrative one you had. Ask that narrative question you talked about.
Yeah, so I mean, I've heard on various podcasts, this year and last year when I was sort of trying to get into this, the NFL is certainly one of the sports where narrative can play a bigger part, and sort of numbers and projections are obviously key, but narrative is also equally weighting and important in looking at these decisions. And I just sort of saying on Thursday, I'd sort of heard a couple of podcasts around Gronk being rested a little bit early season because of to use later in the postseason, and that obviously came back to bite me when he went off. So and essentially you've just your answer has been ignore everything, look on the numbers, which I think makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, and he got off Gronkowski because of this narrative about them working him into it, and nobody had him, and he's the guy that had the big game, So I tell these guys, you don't want to read into these narratives. You don't really want to try to get too much read in. You want to just keep building lineups, making sure we can get a difference where we're still a little bit higher in ownership. Guys, in the build rules, if you wanted to, you can kind of max your ownership here. Also, this is still generic. We haven't even started really adding any features to this. We want to get our ownership down. We're still getting good lineups at 144. That's pretty much our median. So let's see what we got. Now we got Quaz Watkins in here. Keeps really wanting to give us these 3K guys, don't it? Wow. So you see that, you might got to go into this group. You got to add Watkins to it,
He was really low owned though. Yeah.
Yeah, it's just too much. So as we build, you can see we're not building good lineups right now. We're just still not building good lineups with those very slim build rules we're on. We're getting down in the ownership. Like this isn't a bad one, right? Because we're still getting only one of these 3K guys. So we got Ridley Pitts, Matt Ryan. Our run back is Devontae Smith, which I like. You got Rondell Moore and you got Derrick Henry. Well, Derrick Henry will probably be lower owned. He's got a ceiling. And if Rondell Moore does have that good game at that 3K, you got a good lineup here. Michael Pittman is a one-off in here. This doesn't look like a bad lineup. It's at 112, still a good high median. I could see you playing this maybe more of a three entry, single entry type construction. I think these guys are still going to be pretty chalky because I think the stack's going to be chalky. So really you had your question. What was that question on ownership we discussed? Like the range between like higher dollar, right?
Yeah. How different do you get versus say the 150 lotto versus a 3 max 150 buy and the single entries? How different do you have that median? I guess if you're say targeting 100 or something for the 150, can you bump it up 10-20% for the single entry?
Yeah, now we discussed here last year's Millie lineup before we started, and we seen in the Millie Maker with this 1 million entries, we can see that a very balanced build won the stack with Adams and Lazard. And Lazard is looking at shaping up to be a nice guy to play with Rodgers. Even this week alone, he's coming in, getting a lot more reps. He's playing. Adams needs someone to play behind him, and that's a nice little stack right there. You're getting a couple low-owned guys in here, and you're getting good correlation, but you're getting a one-off and Josh Jacobs and Mozart, but you're getting the Ridley and Olsen stack here at tight end, receiver, tight end. So, and then you're getting the run back for Thielen. Like you can see, this was a pretty low ownership lineup, but you did have a few higher owned guys in there. It's just nobody was playing Rodgers with Adams in the stack. Everyone wants to play Adams, but nobody wants to play Rodgers in the stack. So you don't have to get too different. You can take some of these star guys and still stack them up and still be able to be the winner. And A lot of the ownership that we looked at as well, the ownership we looked at for the Millie Maker was around most weeks was around average ownership for the top 10 lineups. I believe is average ownership of 100% mostly for most of the weeks. I mean, a couple of weeks you got up there a little bit higher, but there's less games. I think a couple of the weeks too, where they start to get more games spread out and bye weeks are big. So you're getting less games as the season goes on. So you're getting maybe more ownership driven towards certain stacks or certain teams. So it's really by the week. Like this is a big week. Like the week one, the ownership on that average top 10 was around 85%, which I think we built one, didn't we? We had one at 85% earlier, didn't we?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah,
We built one at 80 right here, 87. Yeah. We basically took the optimizer and I went through a breakdown of one lineup where we had Delvin Cook in this lineup, where we had Rondell Moore. We upgraded it to Devontae Smith for a run back with Ridley and Pitts. We got different by dropping Delvin Cook to James Robinson, Jaguars defense. We also added Parker and Lazard in there, a couple big boom guys that could have a couple big weeks. Lazard off of Adams. And, you know, we got Devontae Parker, which it looks like everyone's sleeping on at 5,500 as a number one guy over there. So we just kind of took it and built a decent lineup. It projects a little bit low. We're looking at, 10 to 15 points from the median, but I mean, we're not too far away, and we got a significant ownership discount from those 125 to 140 ownership lineups that we're at. So that's really all you got to do, and that's kind of varies. And now some of these lineups we talked about probably wouldn't be that bad for a single entry. Some of these might not be as bad for single entry if Devontae Smith does come in at 3.7% or some of these other guys that we had. But, so it's not a bad lineups. I think we're building good lineups. I think you're really starting to understand what we're doing. We did just add the secondary stack in. We did get rid of Quaz Watkins. So we do want to maybe run a couple more builds here and kind of see what we get. Maybe we want to, what do you think about receiver more in the flex spot?
It's a good question. We hadn't actually touched on the flex spot.
We haven't touched on the flex spot.
I think that makes sense, and I think the other point you made earlier about playing a price down defense as well is a pretty good way to go in terms of being able to, I guess, have more options for the flex spot by the time you've done the rest of your stacks.
Yeah, so a lot of the times the flex spot has been killing it where it's been receiver because the passing has been so much more higher on the season. So we really been like noticing the last few years where it's transitioned from more of running back exposure in the flex, where you had those big Christian McCaffrey, Delvin Cook, people were jamming running backs in. And then nowadays it's more passing, where like even on Thursday night, guys, we've seen all the receivers load up on points. Antonio Brown, CeeDee Lamb's getting balls. Guys, we're seeing it. I definitely want to target my flex exposure with more receivers, more of these ceiling guys like Ridley, DK Metcalf, Tyler Lockett catching 10 balls, dumps offs underneath. So definitely, guys, think that messing with some of these settings, I usually don't attack these exposures a lot, or these outcomes. I mean, I definitely want to start using more of my salary. I definitely like to probably stay around 49.6 and above. So now we're putting some stuff in the optimizer, guys. We're doing work in the optimizer. We're getting it figured out. Okay. So now we're going to build 50 lineups and we're going to see where that takes us. We don't have too much time left here, my guy. So we need to get through the last remaining questions. If you got right on a couple more questions we got, I'm going to build this last 150 and we're going to see how some of these new rules and some of these new stacks maybe transition us to some better lineups, and then we'll build a quick lineup. But as of right now, we got to wait for the builder. So what do you think? Any other questions you got for this video?
One just there actually on when you said you're setting the salary up. A lot of guys say, get different by spending 47, 48K rather than the full 50. But you also have different thoughts on that, given you've just put your salary right up to the near the max.
Yeah, for the salary, I would say most of the good players are using their salary. Everyone in weeks, you want to try to maximize the value, right? We're looking for inefficiency price players in this pool, right? So we're going to want to try to get as much of that in as we can. So if we find a guy at 5.9. Debo Samuel goes off for 3 games or 3 touchdowns, and we got him. We got a guy that's probably a 7K player for that team. If Trey Lance starts step really looks good, and that team comes really throwing the ball with Debo and Ayuk. And these guys, these Brandon Ayuk at 5.7 and Debo, these guys could be 7K players by next week or by week 3. So we're trying to find out. They're low owned. We throw them in our lineup. They're inefficiency price, and they have a 7K week where they should be 7K, and we get them for 5.9. So we're already getting extra in our build. So we want to make sure we use that whole salary cap, at least the 500 and more. That don't leave on the table. Don't leave any more than 500 or more. I mean, because we're trying to get as much points we can get in there and jamming some of these guys in. We want to make sure we're using them. I don't want to play 4 3K receiver or 3K receivers and then go mid-tier running backs and leave $2,000 or $3,000 because I don't want to play Adams and be that chalky build to get different. You're just weakening your ceiling. You know what I mean? Your ceiling's just decreasing now because you don't have any of these. You have more of a mid build with 3K receivers and you're leaving 3K salary, which is not going to get it done. I don't think. So you want to use your salary. You want to get the ceiling as much as you can. I think that was a good question. Kind of discussing salary for a big slate.
Perfect. No, this has been really helpful. Thank you very much for having me on and for taking me through all this stuff.
Yeah, definitely. I want to get this last build in here, but I should have. I didn't realize I had it still at 50. I probably should have just did it for 10 or did it for 50. Yeah, we're running out of time. We got some Saturday football games coming on here in a little bit here in the USA, and my wife's going to a game. I got my little kids. We're gonna probably head up to the park a little bit, and we're gonna watch some football, and we're just kind of hanging out today. So, what do you got going on? Any big plans today?
I'm going to the football, the soccer for you guys. Going to the soccer game in a bit. Actually, nice. I'm thinking of running late for it, but there we are. To go and watch my team get destroyed, I guess. So
there you go. Man, this is really taking a long time, this builder. So guys, so basically I usually build a lot of 150 builds this upcoming week 1. I'll have a ton of builds up here at the top. I might even save some lineups that I like in the builds. Maybe, like if I build a build like this one, we kind of got 90% we built at 130. This was an older build like a couple days ago. It just saved in my thing here. So this is probably not up to date with the thing, but you can see that it's got like a Bronco stack: Bridgewater, Judy, Noah Fant. I'm kind of big on Noah Fant at 4,300, low ownership. He could be a boom play. We got 1 3K guy in there. We did limit that, but we got Kamara, Adams, a couple big guys. Saquon Barkley, no one's going to be on. He's a good run back, maybe the Denver stack. And then you got like Terry McLaurin in there, it's a good play. I like to pay down at defense a lot. You'll probably see a lot of people doing the Falcons. They're a little bit higher owned. I know that game's projected to be a shootout, but I mean, at any time, if Hurts is throwing the ball, rushing the ball, he can fumble, he can throw picks, he can get sacks, right? So even targeting some of the higher scoring games, you can still get lucky with the defense. So let's go to that last build real quick. I know we answered most of your questions. I'm always available in the Discord, guys, DMs. I probably start doing some more of these coaching sessions as well, just trying to get everyone about the optimizers, how to utilize it, how to get the settings, and how to do all that. But this last build, we can see we're still getting some Derrick Henry as a secondary stack. We do got a 3K receiver in there, but we do have that rule limiting that so that we in a 50 build lineup we shouldn't be getting too much of the same. Oh, we got a Wentz stack. You see that here?
Wow.
A Wentz stack popped up in the projections. Look at that. Not bad ownership and not bad for a medium projection. So we got Tyler Lockett here, which is what we like. He's got a boom bust type. You still got Adams and Kamara as a secondary stack. You got a couple low owned throw options for Wentz. And you're running it back. Yeah, you got Lockett in there, and then you got Pitts as a value tight end. But if you guys want to lower some of these exposures, you can see how the exposures are real high. Like, say we don't want 52% of Pitts. You only want to max at 20%. So instead of that, you just change it to 20% and then run it again. So then you can kind of see how your lineup's looking. Just keep running it, So I don't know how many lineups you said you're going to build. I know you're doing mostly single entry 3 max, but then you said you did want to do maybe 20 lineups into the big
Yeah, I got
$1 million.
20 or 30 in there.
Yeah, so you can probably hand build those, or do the 20 build here and get your settings however you want, or you can adjust your exposures. But if you're hand building, you can just go through and still use the optimizer like we were
Yep.
in the video earlier, and then just saving your lineup. Be like, oh, okay, I really like this lineup, or I want to swap. You can swap guys out using this if you want. You can like, hey, I don't want to play Rondell Moore. I want to play, Andy Isabella for Arizona instead. Maybe he has a big game. But I mean, I'm not talking players here, just talking different like ideas on how to build the optimizer, how to build all these different things, and just say, I might target more of a balanced build. Maybe you don't want Kamara, Derrick Henry because they're so pricey, and you want to go for more Najee Harris. You want to go for more Joe Mixon, Antonio Gibson, some of those lower costing running back with upside in the player pool. Because you can see that if we're sorting by RGV, we have some of these guys that are cheaper. Antonio Gibson, these guys are popping in this mid tier. We're getting some lower ownership on some of them, around 10%. So maybe you stick some mid tier builds in and then pay up on the 3K receivers. Then you don't have the 3K receivers. Everyone's going to have the 3K receivers. We don't want that. So we want to get off that. And I'm okay sprinkling it in, especially maybe a mini game stack like that, like a 1v1 there we got. So what do you think of this build? We're getting some better ownership. We're getting decent builds, but you can see, Andy, please, Daddy, be out there in a second. So we're getting some better builds. We even got Gerald Everett now as a run back against this stack. So what are you thinking about? You can kind of see how I just added a few different settings to the optimizer, and we're getting the flex receivers, we're getting the secondary stacks, we're getting these stacks, and now it's just about creating more groups. Maybe you don't want some of these guys and you go X them in your player pool like we did earlier. We showed you guys in the beginning where we X some guys in the player pool. You should go team by team, X the guys in the player pool, get your settings where you want them, and then just kind of build through the optimizer, build after build after build till you get the lineups that you want. And you can even swap these guys out if you don't want Devontae Smith. You swap out to Emmanuel Sanders or whatever guy you want in that stack. And so what do you think of that? You can kind of see how these lineups are getting better as we input some of these settings. You see now we're under that 100% I talked about, and we're in the 140s for median.
Yeah.
What do you think about some of these stacks we're getting?
Well, that's the big difference. The actual the fantasy points hasn't moved at all, but the ownership is way down just by adding those couple of rules and settings into the optimizer. So no, this certainly makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense. Sorry, I got my kids in here. We're about to go. Guys, go get ready for the park. We're gonna go to the park. You guys want to go to the park? Yeah. Go get your shoes on. Go get your shoes on. That's the way to get them out of here. It takes them about 10 minutes to get the shoes on. So yeah. Sorry, this video took a little long. We discussed a lot of good stuff today. I think we had a really nice coaching session. I think you can see how these lineups, like you just said, they're really starting to develop as we add settings. We've now using more of our salary. We got the rule set for that. We didn't even set an ownership rule. We never even set one in the build rules, but just the way we started building the lineups and just the way we started telling the optimizer what to do, that making it how I feel I want the optimizer, we were starting to get better projected lineups, getting them where I don't have all the 3K receivers, where I don't have any of that stuff going on. And they're definitely starting to look really nice.
Yep.
Even Travis Kelce popped in one, which I really like. I might have a little Chiefs exposure, but that's not a bad lineup. And this could be a good single entry 3-max too, guys, where you could throw this in. You got Carson as the run back to the Indy stack. Not many people are playing Carson. He's that cheaper running back we talked about, and he could go off for 3 touchdowns, guys. There's no reason he can't get 3 goal line back. If he's a 3-down back and he's supposed to have a good year, he could get 3 touchdowns week 1, and nobody has him. Under 10, he'll probably be under 10%. And, so you can also build a rule where you change up your receivers. Maybe you don't want Pascal. Maybe you just want a skinny stack with Pittman, Wentz, and Carson. You don't want to do a 3-man for that, which in the stacks, guys, you can go through and say, hey, I just got a stack with 2 receivers, a quarterback, and a running back from the other team. Well, maybe I don't want that from the Colts. So you can just uncheck it. And now the Colts won't give you any of those stacks. So maybe you create another stack. We'll add a primary stack. And then you have one quarterback. Maybe you only have one receiver and one running back, tight end, or receiver run back. And then you uncheck everything. And then you check Colts. And now you add that to 10%. And then you have to drop one of these to like 40. So now you're going to get a Colt stack and say maybe you want the same stack with Buffalo, Devontae Parker, and you want to only run it back with like Damian Harris or something. Or maybe you only want that with the Saints too. You only want like one receiver. You don't want multiple receivers. So you see what I'm doing there? Where I'm building more stacks in my builds. So I'm saying, hey, I don't want any 2 receiver combos for this team, or this team, but I want a 3-man stack. Because guys, 3-man stacks, 4-man stacks, game stacks are the key. That's the Millie Maker had like, so many top 10 lineups in the Millie Maker had those type of game stacks, and those are kind of the ones you want to target. So definitely, like I think last year, game stack, 3-man game stack, there's 45 out of 170 lineups because there's 17 weeks, top 10s, 170 lineups. Had 45 of them had a game stack of 3. So a receiver, quarterback, a run back, and 45 of them. So 50% of the lineups had that kind of combination, a 3-man game stack and a 4-man game stack. So my guy, I hope that helps you out building these lineups. We talked about stacks. We talked about different lineups. We talked about how to make the lineup different from what other people are doing. If everyone's jamming these 3K guys in, make sure your lineup either has no 3K guys and go with a more balanced approach. Maybe we go with more of a less running back approach. Higher end receivers are going to be more not as popular because everyone's jamming these 3K guys in. So I hope that idea you want to go against what they're doing. So make sure you take advantage of when the field is wrong, right? So if the field's on all these 3K guys, you pay up at receiver. So kind of going different ideas there. So I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Any final questions from you, my guy, or anything else you want to discuss quick?
No, this has been super helpful. Thank you very much for taking the time. Much appreciate it. And hopefully one of us, it's good if either of us win this weekend.
Yeah, so, I hope we both win this weekend.
Yeah.
I hope we have a good weekend. I'm going to try to get this video out to everybody. Make sure you guys like, follow, subscribe to the new pages we got. Check me out at True DFS. I'm in the Discord every day answering all these kind of questions. Tomorrow morning, we'll be live on Sundays at 11:30 a.m. Eastern, breaking down the slate. So make sure you guys check that. It's hope for a big week 1 and just try to get different from the field, guys. Take advantage of the inefficiency price players a little bit. I know the 3K guys are going to be popping a lot because they're like the lead receiver now on their teams for injuries, other things, but there's other weapons on every team. There's going to be weapons on every team, and you're going to want to take advantage of that and make sure you go for the ceiling. So I hope everyone has a good week and we can win big and maybe someone chips a millie. So let's get it, my guy.
Good luck, guy. Have a good one.
Have a good one.